Marty, so what is it? 2 weeks to flatten the tariffs?
Yeah, that's the joke. I don't know
That's
who
the
coined
joke.
that. I don't know who coined that. I think it was Steve, 222, 222 minutes. I think Steve's where
Oh,
I saw
he's
that.
great.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, the tariffs, the countdown's on. The tariffs, actually, the tariffs go on Saturday, right? On this Saturday, on the 1st of February.
Yeah.
I actually posted a story. So the
We could have
tariffs,
avoided it, by the way. We could have avoided it if we put out an effort and actually
we
showed boots on the ground of
yeah.
physical presence instead of just promising more stuff in the future down the line.
We're doing some of that. We're doing some of that. Like here in Alberta, we I don't know if we bought them, rented them, hired them. We got 2 Black Hawk helicopters flying the border for security to meet with some of Trump's demands. But I posted a story this morning. One of Trump's financial advisors, I already forgot his name. He's like a guy who got his PhD in 2004, like barely 15 years ago, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote an essay, and in his essay he describes the whole idea of tariffs to make money for the American population instead of taxing the populace, which apparently is an idea that the Americans used in the past and various previous administrations. So anyways, that guy has Trump's ear. That's who Trump's listening to. So tariffs aren't going away. Like
So,
it's
and
not just about border security. He wants tariffs to raise money.
yeah, so here's the thing. I've said this many times. Like, tariffs are typically a trade protectionism thing,
Yep.
or any particular market in your country. You do that. You put that on so that other countries can't compete with your particular thing. The people who lose out in that scenario are the consumers within your own country. That's how that works. I mean, look at the dairy lobby in Canada. Look at milk, eggs, that kind of thing in Canada. That's protectionism, and it's not helping us, and it doesn't really weigh well on trade negotiations, that kind of thing. Now, what we assumed Trump was doing was this idea, right? I openly talked about it, that it was a sanction because he earmarked it. He said, basically, I'm going to put this on, or you fix your border and you do these things. A quid pro quo. So it's an economic sanction for not behaving like a neighbor ought to behave in their opinion. And that's fair. I can understand that. But now he's got this new idea or this new concept that's just floating out there that you're just talking about right now. And he's expressed this. So I've got this
He
clip
expressed
right
it.
here.
He expressed. Hang on. He expressed that idea during the debate. He expressed it during the debate with Kamala, right? So yeah, play the.
America is going to be very rich again, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. Do you know the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887, and this commission had one function: what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. It was set up 1887, and what to do with all of the money that we had. And again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary, because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money, and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but he was given a vast amount of money, and that was all made through tariffs. We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913. As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
I still think some of that's going to backfire. I mean, like, first of all, he mentioned something like there were tariffs up until, the early 1900s. Then he admits that they had to bring in an income tax. Why? Because everybody caught on. Trade, trade was more unilateral in the early Americas, but later on, everybody else started trading. So he had to bring in an income tax, and then he completely ignores what happened during the Great Depression of the 1920s and 1930s. So, he's cherry picking his history, and he's cherry picking a successful period when tariffs work. So, I mean, I'm not going to argue with Trump, but we're going to see what happens, right?
Well, the 1930s. I don't know. This is an argument often from people. Actually, I think Lou Rockwell had some great arguments. He's from the Mises Institute, and he talked about the 1930s, the Great Depression, and how it wouldn't have been a Great Depression if the government never got involved. In fact, if they would have just stayed out of it, it would have largely been like the recession that happened a decade prior, and it would have largely been, a lot of people in a particular industry that would have went bust, but not the economy as a whole. The government came in with believe it or not, recommendations a lot like what we see in Canada, where they told farmers to till over fields, not unlike dump all your milk to keep the prices high, to keep the farmers employed. They would do this across large sectors of the economy, telling people to burn their wheat, to kill and bury their livestock. Like this is some things. Now, tariffs in this way. Now, this could work if it was done at a certain degree. I mean, I think there is probably a sweet spot if you wanted to argue get rid of the income tax and use tariffs instead as a fundraiser. First off, you'd have to get rid of the largesse of the state. I guess he's working on that, and that's a big thing. The massive welfare system didn't exist at the time that he's talking about as well. But on the same page, it is a huge benefit to all the countries that have the luxury of trading in the United States economy. It's the largest economy in the world, and people are just welcome to come in and trade. Now, this would be a bit like, the mall owner asking for rents for people who want to engage in the market of being, one of the players in the mall, that kind of thing. And an outsider that comes in with his cart, sorry, you're going to have to pay a fee to come in here. And it's akin to sort of that, but that can only go so far before people just go, okay, forget it. I'm not going to enter that market, period.
I mean, I'm again, as an Albertan, I'm not worried. I mean, I looked at the trade imbalance of oil. He can't shut in our oil. So he needs our oil because they're making 12, they're consuming 12 million barrels a day of oil, and they only make 9. He doesn't have a magic tap that he can turn on and make an extra 3 million barrels of oil a day. So he's going to keep buying from us for the long time. If he wants to throw a tariff on our oil, the only people who are going to hurt is his own people. And then to your point, I'm glad he's putting on it. The tariff made finally got some Canadian politicians to wake up, right? We've been saying for years and years, like, we should trade with more than just the U.S. I mean, it's easy to only trade with the U.S. They're next door, but
until it doesn't work.
So we got lazy. Exactly. We didn't foster those relationships with other countries. We didn't build the pipelines. We didn't build a lot of infrastructure necessary to get our goods from the middle of the country to be exported. And that's good that we're, Trump. I keep saying this about Trump. He's forcing us to, he's dictating what's going to happen for the next little while in Canada. I mean, you hear this week, like Chrystia Freeland or whatever, like, when Amazon left and the minister said, this is not how we do business in Canada. I don't care what you think, Freeland or whoever. Right now, Trump is the elephant in the room, and he's dictating what we're doing.
Did you see her plan?
It looks an awful lot like a conservative plan, doesn't it? I did see her plan.
Her plan, I thought it sounded kind of ludicrous, actually. Her plan to protect our economy from Trump.
That's a different plan. She's had 2 plans this week. Okay, I didn't see that.
It's just what?
This is specifically to protect from Trump.
Thing.
Sorry.
Oh, it looks like she's changed her profile picture again. She doesn't look like she's straight out of hell this time. But yeah, Chrystia Freeland's plan: immediately publish a detailed dollar for dollar retaliation list for consultation, immediately convene a summit and form an international coalition with Mexico, Denmark, Panama, and the EU. Like, you serious? You're making public calls to make this this union of nations to go up against the United States. You're out to lunch. This is just
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous. They're our neighbors.
They're, well, other than Denmark, but yeah.
No. I mean, the U.S. is our neighbors. Why would we be calling on all these countries to form a coalition against our neighbor? We should be trying to, I don't know, win Trump over in this and stop instigating it further.
Yeah. No, I would have a completely different plan. My plan would be, first of all, to go visit Trump. And then I'd say, okay, what is it that you want? And he says, I want a safer border. I want you to jack up your GDP or your spending on military and defense to 2% of your GDP. And I want you to buy a little bit more stuff from us. And I would be like, okay, border. Yeah, that's easy to do. Yeah, we can increase our spending on military. And how about, what's our trade deficit? $100 billion. How's this for a deal, Trump? For the next couple of years, I'll start slow. I'll buy $30 billion a year of military stuff from you guys. Done.
That would be great.
Yeah. And then, and do you want a base? You want to open up you want a military base up in the Arctic somewhere, like close to Greenland, up in northern Quebec? I'll give you
reopen Goose Bay, Labrador. My dad was stationed there.
Exactly. I'll give you 100,000. I'll give you 1,500 square miles somewhere, and you can put yourself a Guantanamo 2. Which we're going to talk about Guantanamo today because Guantanamo got in the news again this morning. So
okay, you have to fill me in on that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But yeah, they're just, you know what this actually reminds me of? This reminds me the liberals, the liberal cabinet that's sitting right now. Free Inland's no longer part of the cabinet. A lot of them have been thrown under the bus since. But the negotiation style reminds me a lot of a time about 3 years ago now. In this time of year, there was a bunch of people that were not very happy about what was going on in the government. So they drove all their trucks to Ottawa. I don't know if you heard about it. This is a thing that happened a while ago. Yeah. So the negotiation style is identical. Do not talk to them. Only talk to the media and other people about them. And don't try to work out a deal. Demonize them. And this is crazy. This is crazy. We're treating now. Okay, it's one thing to treat your truckers terribly in Canada. It's one thing to treat protesters like this, but to try to treat the president of the United States like they did the Freedom Convoy is. I almost swore, Marty.
Yeah.
I almost swore.
You can't. He won't be bullied. He won't be bullied. That's you're not gonna, even the weird language like we're fighting for Canada. This. Oh God. Anyways, I just want to wait to see what happens on Saturday. I made a bet today. I said there, to me, there's a 30% chance that there will be partial tariffs. He's going to put a few tariffs. But he's not gonna hit these big 25% tariffs across the board. He's not gonna do that. There's no way. That's my bet. I
think he's created enough disruption in Canada. I think he wants to get rid of the federal government as it stands today. And put this past you. Trump has a serious adversary, and that would be China. And he really put them on the spot last time he was president, and he got a lot out of them, an unbelievable amount out of them, and that was very substantial, and it was good. Now Canada is completely infiltrated. I mean, the official inquiry would tell you otherwise, but Canada is completely infiltrated by China, and at the federal level, and it's ridiculous. It's obvious, and Trump probably has a vested interest in de-Chinifying Canada.
Okay. Yeah.
I think just throwing that out there. Perhaps Trump has some plan behind these tariffs that are to shake up the federal government, get people to realize that they're terrible and they got to go. So that 30% chance that you said might be to keep those tariffs going, just to cause that havoc amongst them.
And I'm taking a chance on 30. I said 2 to 7 odds out of Vegas. I am taking a big chance because if I look at everything else he's done, he's kept his promises. Like he's personally batting like 95% on his promises, right? I mean, he's got He's got the Marine Corps at the border. He's kicking people out. People aren't even waiting for him to get kicked out. They're already loading into their gear and driving. He shut down the DEI department. Did you see what he did today or yesterday? He literally offered every single federal government worker 6 months salary to quit. Like and I mean, like, and I'm watching that.
No.
Yeah, you didn't catch that? Like, and
no, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I was watching that this morning going, ooh, that's almost like a Squid Game type of deal, right? So what I said, I said he should make that deal, and then whoever puts their hand up and takes the money, you keep those guys, because to me, those are the people with
pragmatism.
Those are the entrepreneurs willing to go, yeah, I'll take the money and I'll quit. And anybody who says, no, I don't want to take the money and I'll take my chance and I'll stay, those are the ones you fire. That's what I would do if I was Trump. Fire everybody who didn't take the money.
That's funny. That's really funny. Holy cow. I had no idea that was a strategy. But
so he did that.
Yeah, they're living up on all these promises. They're taking care of immigration. In fact, the new press secretary came in and they inquired about this. The mainstream
clip.
Media.
That's a good clip. Yeah.
Okay, I'll pop this one on. So this is them asking about immigrants being kicked out of America. Notice they'll ask about immigrants.
4,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office. Can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
Okay, I got to mute that for the audio that YouTube will pick up, but obviously gangster moment there.
Yeah, like in Canada, we use the term, what did we use last year?
It's like irregular crossing.
Irregular immigration. And yeah, nope.
No, that's not what it is. It's illegal. What you're doing is illegal. The RCMP immediately stop you and then they bring you in for a hearing. I love the way
that girl thought she was gonna, she was setting up a question like, how many of the people who came in here illegally across the border are criminals? And yeah, she just said all of them.
I can't believe. I think it was like CNN. One of the pundits was saying that you don't count that as a crime because that's a civil matter. And it's like, wait a sec. You don't go to civil court over immigration, breaking the rules of immigration. It's the law.
Same with those journalists are the first ones to say, that Donald Trump is a felon. Donald Trump is not a felon.
No, he's not. I mean,
some of his crimes are not felonies. They're civil lawsuits. Get guilty of whatever, paying money that wasn't quite whatever. Anyways, no. So
statutes of limitations and all of that stuff. Yeah. We know turning a misdemeanor into a felony, that's not gonna stick.
And based on the illegal immigration thing, that's where he sent out a directive today. He told I don't know. I guess it would be the military. He said, get the jail in Guantanamo Bay all geared up. So he's got a jail in Cuba in Guantanamo Bay that can house 30,000 people, and he's going to send the worst of the worst there. So the ones that the countries that won't take theirs back quickly, he's going to send them to Guantanamo for now. But and I saw in the comments somebody brought up Colombia. Like Colombia was an example, right? He said to Colombia, like, here's the illegals, and they said, like, we don't want them. So he's like, okay, here's a 25% tariff. The next second, Colombia sent the planes like, yeah, okay, whatever. Send the illegals.
Didn't they complain? Wasn't it they were complaining that they sent them on military jets?
Yeah. So
like that. And it's like, well, what do you want? You want
I'll make them swim.
First class airliners. Yeah. Like, you send the jets. We'll send them back however you want. That's too good. But that's what holding up to your promises looks like. And I hope we get a little bit of
but that's promises. Okay, but that's promises to his people. So yes, the promises to your people, you should hold them up. I don't think he campaigned on, I'm going to tariff the shit out of Canada. right?
No, he didn't campaign on that.
So that's not a promise. So yes, he's
That's a
holding up
strategy.
it's a strategy. He's holding up the promises to his people. Man, and did you see that? Oh, speaking of that press conference, like when you show the clip, you can see how big the room is, right? That
Yes.
room's about to get a lot bigger. It's going to
That's
become
right.
virtual. It's going to become a virtual room, which is awesome. For you got to get your White House credentials, Clyde.
Should I get?
That's
my
what I
White House
mean by it's
credentials?
going to get bigger, right? Like Trump announced, or she announced. I don't even know that lady's name. His new press secretary. What's her name? Whatever. And she announced that they're reaccrediting something like 400 journalists that the Biden administration had.
Caroline Levitt.
Okay, so they're reaccrediting everybody basically, and they're going to expand. So there's going to be a virtual aspect to the White House press gallery, and then they're going to open up the president to independent media and podcasters and things like that. So we're like, it really is a new era for a lot of things, for the US, for media.
I can't wait. So like he did, and he followed through with this during his last presidency. He did put together press conferences where he invited people in the virtual space, people online and content creators. One person that I follow quite a bit who got invited out to it, Mark Dice. He was part of it last go around. There was a bunch of other creators that got to go to this, and I think it lends a lot more credulity to the stuff that we're doing online, whether it's commentary, actual journalism, news, this kind of thing. The legacy media is dying, and they're dying of their own disease that they've infected themselves with, and it's because they don't want to tell the truth. They want to prop up the things that they want, and well, people are waking up to that and saying, "Nah, we're not going to go with that."
Yeah. So no, that was I don't know how to do you have the clip? Maybe I don't think you knew about this, but I've been watching a couple of the press gallery conversations, and there was another fascinating one today. Did you hear the one where they were laughing at Biden and some of the shit that the previous administration was spending money on? And this is where today, like, she literally revealed that the Biden administration was sending $50 million to Gaza for condoms.
What?
So yeah. So Doge is starting to do their reports now. So I got to get on that. I got to get on the Doge website and figure out, because Doge now is just dumping out stuff like of wasteful spending in the US. And I'm like, if the US are wasteful spending, imagine how wasteful we are too. Like, everybody, I kind of was hoping that they were a little bit smarter and not wasting. I guess they waste as much money as we do. But yeah, $50 million to Gaza for condoms, not for water, not for whatever. Anyways,
I don't know. I just how many devout religious people are using those things. I just don't. It doesn't. Yeah, right. It's just incredible the wastefulness, and I would be surprised if things weren't found like that in Canada if we had our own Doge and they were diving through. Blacklock's reporter is really great at this. They'll put out Freedom of Information Act requests, and they'll pull up all kinds of crazy stuff, like all kinds of crazy stuff. Naya Fannerstill was fantastic.
Yeah, Naya does that all the time. Yeah.
Well, Naya's gone now, so Naya's retired the account. I don't think you'll be getting any more of that from her. So somebody's got to.
I missed that. Why did Naya leave? Any idea?
I think it was so Naya, I think, took a job where she had to clear her.
Yeah. Your employer has a social media policy where you can't be. Got it.
Yeah, and then that's it. So we lost a fighter in the fight, and so have the Liberals. The Liberals have lost a fighter in their fight, and many people on.
He was
Twitter
my front runner. He was my favorite.
And if you forgot his name already, it's Chandra Arya. So he was actually, when it comes to fundraising, the front runner. He was actually a front runner fundraising wise, and for an organic following, to say that, I don't know if you could say that, but yeah, no, he was booted out. The party said, nope, you're disqualified. They didn't give him a reason why. They just said, you're gone. See you later. We don't want you.
No reason why, and no other politician wants to talk about it right now, you know. And I mean, what all we know is that he's an MP. He's currently an MP, which means that he met
He's still a liberal.
He's a
He hasn't
liberal
been
and he's
kicked
an
from the
MP.
party.
Yeah, he's good enough to be an MP. Elections Canada certified him. He's good enough to be an MP, but he's not good enough to be a leadership candidate. I think it in the end had to do with the fact that he didn't speak French. I'm sure that's the excuse they gave.
That's going to be the excuse that they gave, but then you have to say, okay, well, then the Governor General's got to bail, and Mark Carney can't run, and a whole list of them that don't speak French and English. But he put this out there. First and foremost, I wanted to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the hundreds of volunteers across Canada who worked tirelessly day and night over the past 2 weeks to mobilize support for my Liberal leadership campaign. Your unwavering dedication inspires me. I'm deeply humbled and honored by the thousands of Canadians who joined the Liberal Party to support what I stand for and my policies aimed at building an economically prosperous Canada for our children and grandchildren, completely against the Liberal MO. Maybe that was the reason why. Your support means the world to me. Thank you. Today, I was informed by the Liberal Party of Canada that I will not be permitted to enter the leadership race. While I await their official communication, I'm carefully considering my next steps. So that's legalese for you better bet your ass I'm going to sue you guys. This decision raises significant questions about the legitimacy of the leadership race and, by extension, the legitimacy of the next Prime Minister of Canada. I remain steadfast in my commitment to working hard for the benefit of all Canadians. With focused approach, I will continue striving to ensure a secure and prosperous future for generations to come. Thank you. This says Chandra Arya. This is nuts, man. This is crazy.
Yeah. You know, it's ironic. I bet you'd have a hard time reading that. That's how bad his English was. But anyways,
I had a hard time. That's how bad my dyslexia is.
And you're right. Like Carney, everybody said Carney speaks French. Carney speaks French. When he did his when he announced his candidacy in Edmonton, that was one of the first things I noticed. His French sucked. Last weekend, while we were hanging out at your place, Carney and Freeland did a tour of Quebec, just do their campaigning tour. And I watched some of the Quebec stuff. It was painful to watch, man. They were like, there was one minister with him who was basically speaking for Carney. Like Carney spoke as absolute little as possible because you can't put him on the spot. So he would be, if he ever becomes prime minister, all Poilievre has to do is keep questioning him in French all the time. So he's brutal. And then Freeland went on a talk show, one of those sort of a talk show, a typical Quebec talk show. And my God, the audience looked bored out of their skull, like listening to her speak in French. And overall,
speaking English. Whoa, she speaks to people like they're kindergarten kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, I was watching like the Quebecers right now have nothing going for them. Like, they don't like any of the Liberal candidates. They're being attacked by Trump. They're at risk. Nobody's paying attention to them. Like the Quebecers right now behind the scenes, they're just watching hockey because there's nothing else going on.
Well, Cat Canada put it out there. I got this tweet here. Quebec Separatist Party gains lead over current ruling party and plans to hold a sovereignty referendum after forming government. So this is legit. Like if you look at the polling data is not looking good for, if you wanted to stay away from a referendum, like this is the territory where a referendum comes in. This is a little bit out of date. I think the Liberals just creeped above the Bloc Québécois in the most recent one. Depends on what polling data you're looking at, because
I looked at that
went
today.
that way, another one went.
Well, remember
else.
last week it was all about Ecos, right? Ecos had done one poll where they showed like the Liberals like suddenly climbing up and catching up. Since then, there's been 3 other polls now. So Léger had one, and somebody else. So the numbers are pretty much what you got on the screen there. There aren't shifts. Like there's not going to be a 20% shift or anything like that. There's nothing. I mean, Trudeau's absolutely not popular right now. Like, I'm glad people are finally waking up. Yeah, he announced his resignation, and rather than say go, we let him hang on. Like, I still can't believe that we let a guy hang on who announced his resignation. He's still doing harm, man.
He's still doing harm, and the media is just kind of ignoring that because they want to talk about Carney and Freeland and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, he's out there. He was in Poland talking to the Polish prime minister about a nuclear deal. Why is he making nuclear deals for Canada? He's a lame duck. Get out of here. Go on, get. Like, it should be as soon as possible. Get out.
Yeah. Well, what was the crazy deal today? They're basically they're also bouncing around the idea of UBI. Like I swear to God, they're hoping there is tariffs, right? Some of the liberals I think are hoping there's tariffs. So then they get to go, we can defer the election. We can, people think I'm out of my mind when I say the liberals might use the tariffs as an excuse to re-implement the Emergency Measures Act and do crazy stuff. No, I'm not. I'm like, folks, anybody who says they would never do that to me, like, I just go, no, stop saying that. Like,
you said they wouldn't do that over a protest. Come on.
Exactly. Don't ever tell me
they wouldn't lock us down for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. It's crazy. And
Jagmeet this week, even we're there already this week. Jagmeet is almost there. You have it ready. Jagmeet is thinking of. He wasn't clear. He didn't bluntly come out and say, no, I'm still going to defeat him. He didn't say that.
No. In fact, he left the room open for Trudeau to come in and say, yeah, I'll make a deal with you. We'll give people CERB infinitely while Trump puts tariffs on us. It's insane. I got the clip here. Here's Jagmeet Singh talking about it.
If Trump follows through on his plan with tariffs, would you keep the Liberals in power and allow for the passage of a work relief program before supporting a non-confidence motion?
I'll just start off by the fact that I've spoken with a lot of workers who are worried about what the Trump tariffs might mean. They say, sometimes I lay awake at night saying, if that tariff goes through, do I lose my job? And what's going to happen to my kids? What's going to happen to my family? And we think about the analysis that's out there. If those Trump tariffs come in place, there are hundreds and thousands of Canadian jobs at risk. Think about what that means for those workers, hundreds of thousands of workers, for their families.
It means they'll come with their hands out to you. That's what he wants.
Devastating for our country. So we do need to have a plan in place to support those that are impacted, those businesses, those workers, most importantly. I have not had any conversations with other opposition leaders. I think we need to come together to have a discussion about what is the best way forward. I've not had any discussions with the government related to this. If there is any desire,
I don't believe that for a second.
No, together like we did during COVID, and discuss a plan that supports workers. We, as a party of working people, a party founded by workers, want to make sure that there's a plan in place for workers. It's why we said from the beginning, EI is clearly not up to the task. During the pandemic, we realized EI does not cover the majority of Canadian workers.
I think we've heard enough. Yeah, he wants to bring in a CERB, UBI, a universal basic income for people because of a situation that they've created. They create the situation and then they come in with the solution. This is absurd. And the thing is, Canadians are done with it. They're not having it. They don't want any of this. They want it to be over. This is a nightmare.
Answer me this, like he says in there, the NDP, a party founded by workers.
Oh,
okay, Jagmeet. So what does that mean? What were the Liberals founded by? Like non-workers? Like what were the Conservatives founded by? Like, like aliens? Like, but I want to come back to a couple of things he said, but again, his stance shows the influence of Trump. Like, it's been fascinating this week, right? So Jagmeet suddenly cares about workers. That's awesome. In Quebec, they suddenly said, hey, we should have built pipelines to export LNG. I'm like, holy shit, where was that?
10 years late.
10 years late. Chrystia Freeland, man, like, you know, when you showed that little thing there of Christia's plan, she had another plan today where she says if she's elected, she's going to make her cabinet half the size that it is currently, and the PMO office half the size, to make it more efficient, to be able to respond more quickly to threats and whatnot. I'm like, wow, all of a sudden you guys have all these great ideas that we've been asking you to do for 20 years longer, right? Hey,
I wonder what else they stole from the Conservatives. I mean,
well,
it's kind of like
yeah,
when
so
they did the housing accelerator. That was when the Conservatives were talking about housing being a problem, and they kept saying, give us your platform for the next election. Why?
It's
Why
actually
would
in a
we
week
give it
like
to
this.
you? You
Actually, you're
take
right.
it.
It's in a week like this you see the importance of Pierre holding his cards close to his chest. Don't reveal your whole plan just yet, Pierre. I agree. I just want to go back to Jagmeet 1 second quickly too.
Yeah.
Don't play the video, but put him up there again.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's pop this up.
What's with the
sweater?
gray sweater?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
like a thing. Carney, Trudeau, and him have all been wearing these gray sweaters lately.
Melanie Jolie had one too. I'm wearing one right now. It's not quite the same gray, but why did everybody wear a gray sweater? Explain that to me. Nobody can explain that. Maybe I'm really reaching for conspiracies at this point, but if somebody has a theory for the gray sweaters and the questions later in the live portion, let us know, because that was a weird coincidence this week. Everybody's wearing a gray sweater.
Klaus won't pay attention to your press conference if you're not wearing a gray sweater this week, I guess.
Yeah.
They don't want to show off to that, but it's ridiculous. Like, we're at a point now in Canada where people are looking at the situation. They're going, I'm going to bail. Like, I want out of this. And perhaps, Trump, annexing the United States, or United States annexing Canada, might be a solid solution to get out of this. This is Ryan Helmsley. He put this out today. He says, hey, Donald Trump, give us 2 weeks to pack our things, and many of us are gone. We want an alternative to this welfare state. 43% of Canadians, males aged 18 to 34, would become American if offered the chance. Have a listen to this thing he put out.
My name's Ryan Hemsley, born and raised in Ottawa, Ontario, nation's capital. Spent about 3 years in Calgary. Now I'm in Victoria, BC. I'm not hiding behind an anonymous X profile like everybody who's about to bash me. I believe in the 51st state. Our country's lost. Trudeau's destroyed it, and we're just picking up the pieces. I only have one life to live, so I would absolutely love to enjoy that life under the American dream, because the Canadian dream died in 2022, in my opinion. Now, if people want to know how badly we would be if Donald Trump really tried to destroy this country, all he has to do is one thing. I'll preface it with this. January 16th, Ipsos came out with a poll that 43% of young Canadian males aged 18 to 34, 43% would bail instantly if offered American citizenship, okay? The working class would immediately leave, okay? That started at 10% in December when I spoke to the Free Press about this, okay? So now we're at 43%. If Donald Trump decided to snap his fingers and say, okay, Canada, you've got 2 weeks, pack your shit, get your driver's license, your birth certificate, and/or your passport, and get over here. You know what happens to this country? We're done. We're done. It's over, because I'm gone. Take me 2 weeks. Take me 2 days.
Okay, enough F-bombs.
Yeah, the only thing I'll push back against him, and I've been talking about this with a lot of people this week, I'll push back on one thing. And I'm going to piss off some members of the audience right now. 70% of Canadians that I know wouldn't last a month in the US. Okay, so like, they have no idea, like, the US work climate. I worked in the US, man. When I worked in the US, I was impressed, right? You show up in Houston, everybody's got they're well dressed, they're on time. They put in their long hours, and then they go home, and then they're capitalists, they're independent, and they're not dependent on government. Like, government's not in your face, especially in some of the states where I worked in. Mm-hmm. Our culture he's right, perhaps for the 18 to 34-year-olds, but man, if you're a 47-year-old or a 53-year-old who lives in New Brunswick or Quebec or Middle Ontario, and you're going to go to the US, you're not going to like it, because you're going to have to work, you're going to have to be productive, and that big social net that you used to, you're going to have to buy your own health insurance and your whole medical insurance and your vehicle insurance and all those things. For some provinces, for some citizens of our country, it would be like going on another planet. So I love what he's saying, but that is a caveat. Like
well, the caveat is you have to be productive, and if you're not productive, well, just don't get on the. And you know what, the United States was always about that. A lot of people misinterpret the quote on the Statue of Liberty as like, "Come on over, everybody's welcome, and we'll take care of you." Yeah, no. It was get over here if you're productive and you have an incentive to do things. And I shared this tweet out because I wanted to add to it. I said this is a growing sentiment across Canada for people saying, screw it, I want out. Ryan is describing the plot of the novel Atlas Shrugged, where if working age men from Canada were given an invite to Galt's Gulch, would they take it and leave Canada to the moochers? And the moochers being the socialists and their enablers. Don't get that wrong with like pensioners and stuff. No, that's not what I'm saying there. No, so and the title of Atlas Shrugged is the concept of Atlas, who's holding up the world, like the most productive people in society. What if they were to just give up and take off and go to a new place?
Yeah.
And I mean that's what the brain drain is, Marty. Mm-hmm. This is what's happening already in Canada. You don't need Trump to come forward and make an announcement that Canadians can just come to the United States. If you're productive, you probably already you go.
Yeah,
You can
like
go.
I think we talked about it last week, or I talked about. I have an H-1B permit. I have one. I mean, I think it's expired, but I get it renewed in 2 seconds. I don't have to live permanently in the U.S., but if I go to the U.S. as an engineer, they'll take me in a heartbeat. And they'll put me to work in a place like I'll go work in North Dakota or Montana and be like I'll be happy.
And all the people that the government's chasing out. I mean, look at doctors right now. They're overworked, they're overburdened, and they now they're adding, illegally adding the capital gains tax, which was like the only way they were able to make money because everything was regulated out of existence for them when it comes to making money. And then you have on top of it, the threats of lawsuits and all this other stuff. And then the colleges coming down on you now that in British Columbia, the colleges are run by the government. They're not even run by your peers anymore. So there's no incentive to remain in Canada in one of these professions. It's just absolutely insane.
There's an interesting movement of we've talked about this a few times. There is a growing movement of immigrants who've come here who've left and gone. I mean, a lot of immigrants come here and they want to go to the US, right? That's always their goal. But there's immigrants who came here hoping to get to the US, but a year or two goes by and they're still not getting into the US, and they're like, screw this, we're going back home, because they're going back to places that are more prosperous or might not even be more prosperous. But I can give an example. I mean, I had a coffee about 6 months ago with a guy, an Indian that I had met at work, and that was his revelation after a while. It's like, I came here to get ahead, but I'm not getting ahead. He was middle class in India and he's lower class here. And he's like, I'm going back to India where I'm middle class. So it's like,
why not? Great weather and,
Yeah. I'm moving to Squamish, by the way. I actually mentioned it to Karen. She said no, but I'm like today, that's one thing I miss that I noticed right away. Like, it was -20 today. I'm like, oh God, I hate the cold.
You can trade your large house in and get a 2-bedroom apartment in Squamish.
yeah. And a boat. I finally get a boat. Is there a place to keep a boat in Squamish? No, you're too far inland, right?
No, it's right on the sound. But
there was a marina. There's a marina in Squamish somewhere.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure the mooring costs are like insane.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of real estate there, and the cost of like parking your boat is just nuts, absolutely nuts. But yeah, I mean, people would love you to come out here.
Yeah, no, I'm tired of winter, man. I'm tired of winter.
Like, I hear you. That's why I first moved out to the West Coast at all. What do you say to that? I mean, well, we can look forward to, remember, the weather's going to be changing, Marty, and all of Canada is going to be arid, beautiful. The United States is going to be burning, and we're going to be the new Midwest.
Yeah,
isn't that how it's going to go? I I heard Mark Carney was getting his influences behind closed doors from Guilbeault.
Greta. Oh, by getting some from Greta too. I think he
Is that right?
Yeah, he quoted Greta in his book. Like, wow, you quoted an autistic 14-year-old. That's awesome. Hey, can we talk about? We got time a little bit. We got a little bit of time left, but do you want to talk about Carney, or what do you want to talk about?
Well, I was getting into the Carney thing and the carbon taxes. So the reason I was bringing that up is because, well, a lot of social media right now is talking about statements that Guilbeault has said recently, and I don't have a clip. I was looking for a clip just now, but I don't have a clip up. But he's apparently behind the scenes. Guilbeault and Carney have been talking about it, and Guilbeault let it slip that they have a replacement for the carbon tax, but it's going to be even more egregious than what the carbon tax was. And it's a whole new scheme for carbon pricing. And this is what Guilbeault kind of let go. Now, nobody wants Carney. I mean, he's the outsider in Canada.
Nobody wants him, but he's being what's the word? He's being installed.
He's been thrust upon us.
Yeah, like to me, that's my conclusion now. He's being installed. The World Economic Forum, the powers that be, even the PMO chose him. That is part of the deal. When Trudeau resigned, I'm sure that was part of the deal. Like Trudeau is like, I'm not giving up the reins to anybody who currently works for me. You know, like I can handle giving the reins to somebody else. Carney's being installed. Freeland, nobody wanted Freeland. She's putting up a remarkably good fight. She's literally just putting up a fight, and she's not going away quietly. So that's good. And then the other 3 or 4 candidates, like that Ruby girl and what's her name, Karina Gould, and
I think they're in it just because
experience.
They have to. No, well, or somebody else is paying for it, and they're just like setting up, saying, "Come on, make it look like it's at least a contest."
Oh, for sure, they're in for that. I mean, it's to make it look like there was, because what did they say when Trudeau stepped down? We're gonna have a leadership review. We're gonna have a fulsome review and find good candidates and blah blah blah. It's like, no, you didn't. You brought in the usual suspects.
And I'm not totally convinced that Chrystia Freeland is doing it because she wants the part.
No, she's just mean. She's just vindictive. And no, I think she's just vindictive. She's a woman scorned. She got kicked out of the party, demoted, and Carney came in and she thought about it. And just because she's running and she's giving him a good run for his money. So
the godfather of her children, right?
Yeah. It's going to be a fun Christmas.
Oh, and apparently, there's that famous picture. I don't have it up of Trudeau and his groomsmen. And the wedding party, and this is the nepotism of Canada. A bunch of them are MPs. If they're not MPs, they're in the PMO, and that's where we're at. They're the ones behind the scenes running the country, with Trudeau as this pretty face with the pretty hair. And who's behind Carney? All of them. They've all endorsed Carney, and they'll all work for Carney.
We could almost do a family tree of these guys, right? Like you could do Trudeau's wedding party and all those guys and where they ended up. In his wedding party is Gerald Butts. Gerald Butts works with Mark Carney's wife. Mark Carney is the godfather to Chrystia Freeland. The special rapporteur. Remember him, like the guy who was hired to do the investigation, Johnston. He's like,
he was buddies.
He was the ski buddy, the uncle. Dominique LeBlanc used to babysit him and change his diaper. It's so, when we talk about the Laurentian elite, I prefer to call them the Laurentian parasites, but that's what they are. It's that group of
let's not forget Hogue. Hogue was like a business colleague. That's the furthest they could get for them to do this inquiry into the foreign interference, which broke this week. And that, of course, at the end of it, they found, I've investigated myself and I found no wrongdoing as always. But this is the furthest away from them that they could find was someone that works for a law firm for them. Yeah. That's It's
Yeah.
insane. Bratney actually put out a really good point. I want to bring this in before we finish the chat tonight. But this was because about this. So during the inquiry, Trudeau had to testify in that inquiry. Now during or afterwards, Justice Hogue, she came forward and said there was no interference. None of it happened. But Trudeau had this to say.
I have the names of a number of parliamentarians, former parliamentarians and or candidates in the Conservative Party of Canada who are engaged or at high risk of, or for whom there is clear intelligence around foreign interference. And I have directed CSIS and others to try and inform the Conservative Party leader to be warned and armed to be able to make decisions that protect the integrity of that party. And
so he says that all this happened. So Bratney puts this out there. He knew the names and was never going to release them. He tried to pin it on Pierre Poilievre, and now he says there's nothing at all to see. Do you believe Trudeau? So in the inquiry, did he lie under oath? Is he lying under oath in this case, totally. or is the whole thing a sham? I mean, or both. It could be both, folks. It can't be one, or it can't be neither, but it can be both. That's the concept here.
I'm gonna go with he's lying.
He's lying and she's lying. Fair enough. Let's go with that. And this goes full circle back to what I was talking about earlier about Trump looking at what's happening in Canada and going, you know what? I have a China problem, and Canada has got a China infiltration. I think he wants to de-Chinify Canada, and I think that needs to happen. And I'm not talking about Chinese people of Chinese ethnic origin.
Chinese influence the Canada.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping. Like, I think this is far too influential. They're far too entrenched in our politics and running our institutions. And I don't know. I'm convinced Trump has a vested interest in de-Chinifying Canada, and he hasn't spoke openly about it because just think of what the news media would say.
Yeah. Hey, we're running out of time. I guess we'll talk about, or do we? We can go over the 1 hour just a wee bit. We never even talked about the interest rate. The Bank of Canada dropping its interest rate today.
Yes, and what remember that term? Remember that beautiful term that they started using? Americans would be very familiar with this one. It's a term called quantitative easing. We recall this right from the 2008 crash all the way through the Obama years. That's right. Quantitative easing is this concept of printing money and hoping things get better. That's right. Print money. And for people who don't know how interest rates work, the simplified version is money printer go burr, interest rates go down, but inflation goes through the freaking roof. And that's what they've just announced. They announced that inflation, they're turning the taps on.
That's literally what they said. They said they will resume quantitative
easing.
What else did they say? They said they're going to readjust the balance sheet and buy back the old bonds and whatnot. Basically, they're telegraphing that they're just going to print money and lend money, lend. And then simultaneously, the Liberals are like, oh yeah, we have a threat with Trump. We're going to issue a new UBI and we're going to need $100 billion. And where's that $100 billion going to come from? It's just going to be printed by the Bank of Canada.
And you know what? The real estate agents love this right now. They're probably just jumping with glee because what was the action that took place after quantitative easing started, which actually incidentally the Bank of Canada started after 2008 with Carney. Carney was the one who started quantitative easing in the response to Harper's deficit spending. So Harper brought in deficit spending to ease the troubles of the 2008 crisis. Carney counteracted that with low interest rates instead of keeping things reasonable. And And that it creates asset bubbles.
And
We
I
kept
love
going
how
with it.
Carney's trying to take credit for navigating us through the whole 08 crisis and everything else. No, you didn't, buddy.
If there was no fiscal balance, we would have been hooped in 08.
Yeah.
Like, believe me, Carney has nothing to do with fiscal conservatism, and he brought in low interest rates. That's his claim to fame. What does that mean? He brought in asset bubbles. He's the origin of the housing crisis in Canada. The massive spike in housing prices, he is the catalyst, the very origin of where that came from.
Now, one of the things I'm trying to, in the coming days, that I'm trying to wrap my mind around. Remember earlier when I talked about Trump's new financial advisor and the guy who wrote that paper on tariffs and whatever? One of that guy's theories is that the Americans overvalued their dollar accidentally, and that gave them the average American a prosperity, because the average American could buy cheap stuff, which is real, which is true. But that economist is saying that they got to rectify that. I'm like, that's an interesting concept, because if the Americans try to devalue their dollar or make themselves less powerful, I got to wrap my mind around.
So
that
I disagree with that,
yeah.
because at the time you couldn't devalue the dollar because it was tied to a monetary metal.
No,
value.
he wants to do it now. Like, he wants to devalue their dollar now.
I see.
I'm like, so I'm reading that.
I thought you were talking about the historical accounts.
No,
of why
he
the
just
tariffs
wrote
were.
this paper he just wrote. I put it online this morning or yesterday morning. This guy just wrote this paper like in November 2024. So I'm reading this paper and I'm like, it's a long paper, it's thick, and I'm like, oof, some of these things are. I get nervous when you got individuals. I prefer to let the market work itself out. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And when you got a guy like Carney or Tiff Macklin or this guy, I can't remember his name, who single-handedly convinced a whole bunch of other people to do something drastic like printing more money or lowering interest rates. Those are, in these kinds of powerful markets, that could go sideways real fast. We shouldn't be trying to control markets, just like we shouldn't be trying to control the weather. Like, let Mother Nature do its thing, like
laissez-faire, as the French say, right? Leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Absolutely.
I'm totally for that. Marty, where can people find you?
Find me at Marty Up North on Twitter. And I made a little plea last week and it worked great. It was awesome. You folks, I got about 200 new subs on YouTube. You can find me as Marty Up North on YouTube. I just want to get to 25,000 and then I'm done. I'll be super happy if I get done. I'm just shy of 25,000. So
we'll get down there. The links are in the description down below, and we'll do this again next week.
Cool. Awesome.